Stress because of this pandemic is taking a toll on families across San Diego, and in some cases, children may be bearing the brunt of this problem. ABC 10 News reporter Jared Aarons takes an in-depth look at some alarming numbers on child abuse and how the pandemic is making it harder for people to identify children in need.
It's extraordinarily troubling.
As the clinical director of the Child Abuse Pediatrics Program at Rady Children's Hospital, Dr. Shaylin Nino has seen an alarming trend during the pandemic.
We are busy all of the time.
Since March, visits to the center are up around 80%.
We know from national studies that rates of child abuse increase during times of economic downturn. We also have the additional stressors of people being isolated, not having access to support services, being forced to take on roles that they're unprepared for.
Nino believes that's led to an increase in abuse, and it may not be only physical.
On the internet, the predatory behavior of people trying to sexually exploit and recruit and get our kids to go into harm's way is really exploding.
District Attorney Summer Stephan says kids' increased time in front of screens makes them more susceptible to online predators.
Kids are at home, they're on their tablets, they're on their phones.
But while crimes against kids may be rising, the number of reports is dropping significantly. Early in the pandemic, an ABC 10 News I-Team report found a nearly 60% drop in calls to child welfare services. Now, the county tells us they're still down, almost 30% compared to last year. From April through August of 2019, Child Welfare Services fielded around 27,000 calls. During those same months in the pandemic, that number is around 19,000.
We certainly know families have more needs now than ever before and are struggling with all of the effects from the pandemic.
Dr. Kim Giardina, the director of Child Welfare Services, says her workers are still busy responding to every call they get and still doing in-person visits as often as possible, even in the midst of a pandemic. She also says while calls are down, the number of substantiated abuse cases they open is steady.
We are out there, our staff are working hard every day to make sure that those kids are safe.
Experts believe the drop in calls is because kids are spending less in-person time with teachers and doctors who are required by law to report any sign of abuse they see.
They tend to be a really significant safety net for kids, and now that safety net is somewhat gone.
To make up for the lack of in-person contact, Child Welfare Services and the DA's office are training teachers how to recognize signs of abuse during online learning. The county also provided $2 million in CARES Act funding for community outreach programs on identifying abuse. And Stephan sent a 7-page letter to Governor Newsom in mid-September asking him to consider child abuse issues when deciding whether or not to reopen schools.
But it's much more difficult to make those observations when the child is in their home versus at school where they're away from it all and can be seen and heard.
Meanwhile, Child Welfare Services and doctors like Dr. Nino urge everyone to be more aware of the problem and report any issues they see.
It takes a village to raise healthy kids, and especially now when people are expected to deal with different stressors in their life, providing support to those families is really important.
Dr. Nino says it's also important for adults to recognize signs of stress in themselves that could lead to abusive behavior. She says it's okay to feel overwhelmed and also okay to ask for help. Jared Aarons, ABC 10 News.
Such an urgent situation. If you want to get more information or to report suspected child abuse, call the county hotline. Numbers on your screen. It's 858-560-2191. Now, within the state of California, you can call toll-free 1-800-344-6000. That's 6000. Well, this morning, the Padres